In this tutorial, you will learn exactly how to use DaVinci Resolve step by step from start to finish. And in the comment section of this video, there are timestamps so that you can click and skip to specific parts of this tutorial. So let's dive right in. If you haven't already installed DaVinci Resolve on your device, then click on the link I will leave in the description. This will take you to the website blackmagicdesign.com/products/DaVinci Resolve, where you can download the latest version. So when you land on the website, you will see the latest download of DaVinci Resolve, version 17. Click on Download Now. I'm going to install the newest free version, DaVinci Resolve 17 Beta. And this version contains an incredible library of editing tools, so it's really amazing that it's free to use. So choose your operating system. For me, it's Windows, and fill in your information. And then download. It's that simple. Once you have downloaded DaVinci Resolve and you open it, the first thing that you will see is your Project Manager window with all your existing projects. You can then continue editing your existing projects by clicking on them and then open. You can also sort your existing projects by putting them in folders. And you can start a new project from here by clicking on New Project or Untitled Project. Let's create a new project, and we can call this DaVinci Tutorial, and click on Create. So this is the DaVinci Resolve interface. It is divided into 7 pages, following a left to right workflow, where we can import clips in the Media page, edit our project in the Cut page or Edit page, work on motion graphics and special effects on the Fusion page, do our color correction on the Color page, edit our audio in the Fairlight page, and finally export our project from the Deliver page. We are not going to use all of these pages in this tutorial because we're going to keep it simple, but these are all of the pages that are available for editing our video. So before we do any importing, it is a good idea to make sure our project is set up correctly. So click on Settings down at the bottom. Here is where we can customize settings for our video. The key ones we can set are our timeline resolution. So for this project, I will select 1080p. So we're going to leave the other settings as they are for now and click on Save. So typically with any project, we're going to work from left to right. So we're going to start with the Media page first. So let's click on Media, where we can import our video clips to DaVinci Resolve. Then down here where it says No Clips in Media Pool, right-click with your mouse, Import Media, or you can also use Ctrl-I with your keyboard shortcut keys. Select the video footage from your computer. If you hold down Ctrl or Command, you can select multiple clips, and then click Open. Do we want to change our project frame rate to match our clips? Yes, we do, so that our clips will play exactly as we have filmed them and the way we intend for them to look. So I'll click on Change. The footage I've got is of me introducing a subject, a boat ride clip, my overlay footage, and a music track. So now that we have the footage we want to edit here, we can start editing it. There are 2 different areas where we can cut or edit our footage. There is the Cut page and the Edit page. The Cut page is for those on the go, basically for editors who want to edit fast. This isn't ideal for longer projects, but for short scenes and vlogs with many clips, the Cut page is very effective because everything is live with only a single click to complete each task. Now in this tutorial, we're going to be using the Edit page to do all of our cutting and assembling. But I do encourage you to watch a few tutorials online about how to use the cut page to edit your videos, especially if you're someone who needs to edit faster. So now let's click on Edit down here. The edit page has a traditional layout. We have the media pool where all of our clips are housed, the preview window to set in and out points, the timeline window for playing back any edits on our timeline. So here's where we can see how our video is coming together. The timeline itself is down here. The effects library, where we can choose transitions, captions, and filters, is up here. And the inspector panel is up here on the right, where we can adjust the position and rotation of our clips, or for changing the properties of an effect or transition. Let's drag in a clip onto our timeline by clicking on the clip and then dragging it down to the timeline area with our mouse. You can see a timeline thumbnail has now been created in the media pool. So we have our playback controls here. If you want to play back any part of your clip on the timeline, simply press play, stop, fast forward, or rewind. You can also use your keyboard to play and stop your clip. If you move this slider to the left, you can zoom all the way out. And if you move it to the right, you can zoom all the way in and get more perspective over your clips. Or you can use the detail zoom, which will zoom into where your cursor is placed on the timeline. So this red line here. Or if you want to see the whole project on your timeline, then click on Full Extent Zoom. If we want to change how clips on our timeline look, click on the Timeline View option icon. If we want to turn off our audio track, click this button here, and this will turn off our audio waveform. Also, we can customize the way our thumbnails are displayed on the timeline. If you only want one thumbnail image to appear at the beginning and end of a clip, then click on this button here. Or if you want no thumbnail images or pictures, then click here. This can be useful if you're working on a really long project, and we can customize the view of our audio waveform here as well. We can also change the track height at the bottom here. We can make our thumbnails appear bigger and smaller by dragging the slider left or right. And we can also do the same for our audio waveform. So I'm going to make it a little bit bigger so that I can easily see what I'm editing. By the way, you can also adjust the size of all the different parts of the interface by placing your mouse in between two sections. When I see this icon with two opposite arrows, I can then drag to the left or right to make each section bigger or smaller. In this case, I'm going to drag to the left to make my timeline area longer. There are different ways that you can cut a clip in Davinci Resolve. The three ways that I like to use are 1. Selecting an input and output in the preview window. The second is to use the blade tool. And the third is to trim my clips. Also, we can use two very useful keyboard shortcut keys, which I will show you in just a bit. Selecting an input and output is one of the quicker ways to cut your clip if you have a talking scene in your video. So if I want to cut this particular clip of me talking, I need to double click on it. It will then show in the source monitor or preview window right here. So this is my playback head, and I can move it to any part of this clip. So I can do that up here, or I can do that in the preview window. If I want to delete the beginning of my clip where I'm just getting ready to speak, I can move the playback head just before I start talking, about here. Then I will press I on my keyboard, which stands for input. And I want my output or the end of this scene to be right here where I introduce myself. So I will move my playback head to that part and press O on my keyboard, which stands for output. Now what I can do is to drag my clip onto my timeline by clicking in the preview window and just dragging the clip down to my timeline area. If I do that, it will add my clip and audio to my timeline. So let me undo what I've just done by pressing Ctrl Z on my keyboard. Now if I only want the clip on my timeline without the audio, I can click on this button and drag it down to the timeline. If I only want the audio on my timeline, then I can click on this button and drag down only the audio track of this clip. It's that simple. And you can repeat this process until you have all relevant parts of your clip on the timeline. So for example, I want this next bit to be my input and this to be my output. And I'm going to add it to my timeline by dragging it down again. A quicker way is to use the keyboard shortcut key Shift F12. If you want to trim a section of your clip on the timeline, hover over the beginning or end of that clip with your mouse. When you are at the edge, you will notice your selection tool changes to the trim tool. You can then drag in your clip to your desired point, and you can do the same for the end part of your clip. And say for example, you only want to trim the audio track of your video and not the video itself. You can click on the link tool to disable it, and then you can drag in or trim only the audio track or even the video track without modifying other parts. Just make sure you enable the link tool again to make editing faster. Another way to edit your clips is by using the blade tool, which is right here. To use this tool, your clips need to be on the timeline. So I'm going to add another clip on my timeline from the media pool simply by dragging it down to my timeline. I want to delete this section here on my clip where my son starts coming towards me. So I'm going to press B on my keyboard, which changes the selection tool to the blade tool. When I hover over this clip with the blade tool, it will show up in the timeline window, as you can see. So I can cut the parts that I don't want simply by clicking on them without using the playback head or the cursor at all. And the next part I want to cut is where we start to board the boat. So I'm going to click here to cut. Now this is very important. Press A on your keyboard to bring back the selection tool. Now click on the clip that you want to delete, which is this one right here. And then you can either hit backspace on your keyboard, which will delete the clip but leave a space or a gap here. Or you can hit delete on your keyboard, and you can see it will automatically move your clip to fill in the gap, which was created by the deleted clip. So it's much quicker to press delete, of course. By the way, anytime you need to close a gap on your timeline, select the gap by clicking on it, and then hit delete to ripple delete that space. An even faster way to remove unwanted parts of your clip is to do a ripple edit or trim tab. This is when you use the shortcut keys Ctrl-Shift** left or right. For example, if I want to delete this part here, so I've just moved my playback head, I haven't clicked anything. So this part here, I can press Ctrl-Shift** and you can see that it has deleted the clip to my right and also moved all of these edits back to close the gap. Also, say for example, I wanted to delete this part here to my left. I need to move my playback head to this section without pressing anything and simply hit Ctrl-Shift** left on my keyboard to delete. So this is a much faster way to edit your clips on the timeline. In addition, while you're editing your clips, you can also move them around by clicking on them and then dragging them to other parts of your timeline. So whenever you're editing your video will be opened in the Inspector palette, up here on the top right. And this is the area where you can make more modifications to your video. For example, we can zoom in and out of a hard cut to make the transition appear more natural. So we have a hard cut here, in between the first and second clip, as you can see. And we can leave it like that, so there's nothing wrong with that. Or we can zoom in on one of these clips just to create a smoother transition. So I'm going to select the clip after the cut. Then we can either enable this box for a dynamic zoom, and this will jump in on the image and then slowly zoom out. Or we can come up here to zoom, and I will just zoom in a little bit on the shot here. And the trick to really make this look more natural is to try to keep the eye in a very similar position. So I could move my image down a bit and slightly across. And that just gives the hard cut a much smoother finish. So once you have done your main edits, the next step can be to add some overlay footage over your main edit to really help your viewers stay engaged and get a clearer picture of what you're talking about. For example, if I want to add this clip over my main edit, I can either edit it in the preview window by selecting an input and output, as I've shown you previously, and then I can drag it onto video 2, just above the main edit, or I can drag it directly from the media pool onto my timeline area and edit the overlay clip using the trim tool and blade tool, like I've shown you previously as well. Now you can see that our cursor is snapping or jumping to these edits in our timeline when we are editing our overlay clip. If you don't want that to happen, so you want more control, then turn off the snapping button, and that will give you a greater amount of control. If you want to remove audio track from an overlay clip on your timeline, for example this one, make sure that position lock is selected. This will make sure that only the audio track gets deleted and no other parts are deleted as well. Then hit delete on your keyboard to delete. So now that we have added our B-roll or overlay footage, the next step can be to add music or another audio track to our project. Here is my audio track in the media pool. We can create another audio layer by left-clicking on the black space in Audio 2 and select Add Track, and then Stereo. Then drag your audio track onto the timeline in Audio 3. We can edit our audio track the same way that we edit our clips. We can trim the start and end parts of our audio by dragging in the track. We can also use Ripple Edit to do quicker edits. For example, if I want to delete this whole part on the right, I need to make sure my track is selected and position lock is enabled so that other parts on my timeline don't get deleted. Then press Ctrl+Shift²right to delete this section of the track. We can also adjust the volume by hovering over the white line on our wave track. Our selection tool will change to opposite arrows, and then we can drag the volume down or up as we see fit. Also, if we want to fade in or out our audio track, we can move our cursor to this marker here and drag it in. You can see that we have a time indicator here. So let's say this fade out is about 3 seconds. So this means that when our audio volume hits this marker here, it will start to fade out for 3 seconds until it is completely silent. Also, if you want to make edits to one audio layer first, you can mute the other by clicking here. Then once you have finished editing that track, you can then unmute the track and continue editing the next track. Just a little tip, if you want to know how to remove background noise or really improve the sound of your voice, I've made a detailed tutorial about how to use Audacity to improve your voice step by step. I will link that down below in the description box in case you're interested. So if you want to make more customizations to your audio, you can do that as well. If you select Effects Library, you can add simple transitions in between your audio tracks. And under Audio Effects, there are a lot more effects you can add to your audio to really tweak and adjust it. And if you are on the pro side of things and you're really looking for more features and controls, then you got this Fairlight page down here as well, which has all of that in there. Now that we have added music to our project, the next step is to add any titles or captions. I want to add a title at the beginning of my project, so I will slide my playback head towards the beginning of my first clip. Then click on Effects Library up here and click on Titles down here on the left side. So the titles at the top here are our basic text titles, and our Fusion titles are a little bit more advanced. If you hover over any title, it will give you a preview in the timeline window. So let's drag the basic title on top of our first clip. I'm going to double click on the text box, and that is going to open our inspector palette at the top right here. This is where we can customize our text. So I will type multilingual family in here, and you can see it will show up in our timeline window. I can change the font of my text here. I can make it bold or italic here. I can change the color here. I can increase the size and even the spacing between the letters and the line here. I can also move the position of my text by hovering in the center of the box and then dragging the opposite arrows either to the left or to the right. I can also adjust the position in my preview window by dragging the text to where I want it to go. And if I drag in the edges from the side, it will reduce the text size or increase the text size. I can also add a drop shadow to my text, a stroke, or background, just to help make it stand out more. So let's add a background to this text by enabling the box. And I'm just going to tweak it a little bit. Yep, that looks good. Something important to know is that if you want to undo any edit to your text, you can click on the undo icon next to each effect to come back to what it was before. The next step is to add transitions to our video to polish our video and make it look more fluent or smooth. So it's important not to use too many transitions. Less is more, I would say here. We still have this panel opened on the side. If you can't see it, go up here to Effects Library and then click on Video Transitions. Also, if you hover over the transitions, you can see how they appear in the timeline window, which is quite handy. If we want this title to fade in and out, we can add a cross dissolve to the beginning by dragging the transition and dropping it right here. And then we can drag another one at the end of the title. And if you hover over the edge of the transition box, you can change the duration of the transition by dragging it in so it's a quick fade, or we can drag it out to make it a long, slow fade. So let's have a look at that. And anytime you add a transition, it will show up in the inspector palette where you can make more modifications to it there. So now that we have made our project look more polished, the next step can be to color correct and color grade our footage. So for that, we can click on the color page down here. And this page has a lot of different color correction and color grading effects to really improve the overall look of your clips. The process of color correcting is really making sure that our footage looks exactly the way that the human eye sees things. So making sure that the black parts of the video are really black and the white parts are really white. And the other parts are also well balanced. Color grading is adding a bit more vibrancy or mood to our clips. If there is nothing wrong with your clips, then skip this step and move on to audio or exporting your project. If you think you need to improve the look of your clips, I've made a short and basic color correction and color grading tutorial, which will help to boost the look of your footage. I will link it down below and at the end of this video. So once we have done all our adjustments and corrections, the final step is to export your video. Yay! So click on the link Deliver at the bottom here. So if you have very specific settings you want to use, then you can modify them here. And below are also more advanced settings. We've also got presets at the top here for places like YouTube and Vimeo. And if you're planning to use either of those two, then this is an easy and fast way to export your project with the right settings in place. So I'm going to select YouTube for this example. Click on the arrow next to it, and we can export it in 720p, 1080p, which is HD, or 2160p, 4K. So for this project, I have a 1080p project. We can give our file a name. We can choose Browse to select where we want this to go. I'm going to put it into my documents. And if you like, you have the option to upload your file directly onto YouTube. Personally, I don't use this because I like to review my video first before I upload it. So once you are happy with your settings, click on Add to Render Queue. This will pop up on the side here, and you will need to click on Start Render, and that will start saving out your video. So this is how to use Davinci Resolve for beginners step by step. I hope you have found this video useful. If you have, don't forget to give this video a like. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.